Good evening. This is CTV News for Tuesday, April 25th. I'm Denise Douglas. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Well, AAA is criticizing the use of speed cameras on Route 1 near the University of Maryland, but not for the reason you might think. A representative with the Auto Club says they appear to be effectively causing people to slow down, thus saving lives. However, spokesman John Townsend adds that the camera vendor is making a lot of money off of the tickets because of the way contracts are written. Revenue jumped from $1.5 million to $4 million between 2014 and 2015.
Motorists are always concerned about what they think are unscrupulous practices, and you can say, well, how can you call it unscrupulous? Because contracts of this nature have a potentiality and have the patina of a conflict of interest, because you have a private sector company that's not in law enforcement doing a law enforcement practice or function, but it is all about profiting from it. And so that should never be the case. There are too many questions and concerns that people have today about how law enforcement is functioning, because this is about your rights, it is about your responsibilities and your role as a citizen. And nobody should be taken advantage of. If it's about law enforcement, let law enforcement do it, not the private sector.
Townsend also says that some jurisdictions are changing contracts with private vendors to a flat fee payment or a structure that is more of a fee for service sort of arrangement. It's that time of year when the weather warms and pedestrians take to the streets. Patricia Vallone is in Langley Park for the kickoff of a semi-annual public safety campaign.
Today's rainy weather may not seem like the best day to campaign for an effort to decrease injuries and fatalities for those who bike or walk. But come this weekend, when the temps reach the high 80s or 90s, there'll be a lot more people enjoying the outdoors.
While crossing the road in a crosswalk in Northwest DC, he was struck by a car. The driver, along with their passenger, continued on, leaving David behind.
Michelle Adams is speaking about her friend David Narvaez, who was fatally struck by a hit-and-run driver in the district over the summer. According to preliminary data for 2016, 71 pedestrians and 10 bicyclists lost their lives, or 29% of the total traffic fatalities in the Washington region. It's an issue that brought officials together from around the region this morning in a campaign called Street Smart.
And so you walk when it says walk, and you stop when it says stop. And as bikers, people who are riding their bikes, they're part of the roads. We follow the rules of the roads. Those are the things that we can do to make sure that we're safe. And that's why it's so important that as we ask people to look at modes of transportation, that we get the word out.
Now, fines, talking about enforcement for these kinds of conducts, can range from $50 to $500. That's not our preference. Our preference is that for those of you who are driving, you'll exercise a little more caution. You'll look a little bit more closely. And please put down your devices.
Now, the campaign coincides with Bicycle Safety Awareness Month, which kicks off in May. From Langley Park, I'm Patricia Vallone for CTV News.
Patty also tells us that through May 14th, law enforcement across the region will step up efforts to identify and ticket drivers, pedestrians, and bicyclists who break safety laws, particularly in high-risk areas. Crews remain at the College Park construction site where a 5-alarm fire broke out on Monday. Hundreds of firefighters were called to 4700 Berwyn House Road, the largest response in Prince George's County history. The massive fire began on the 6th floor of the mixed-use development and extended to the roof of the Fuse 47 building. Officials say firefighters are now working to extinguish 3 hotspots that are under a collapsed section of the roof. Residents at the Spellman House Senior Living Facility were evacuated but have since returned. Assistant Fire Chief Alan Doubleday talks about the challenges in tackling this part of the fire.
It's so big, and the building is built into the side of a hill. So we couldn't get fire trucks around back of this building. So we were limited to only being able to fight the fire from the inside, which we had to remove that option because of the collapse, to fighting it from the outside on the street level with all the ladder trucks, which basically means we had to flow thousands of gallons of water per minute into the roof area of this building, which made basically the entire building unstable in that area where we were flowing the water. Now we've limited to just 2 ladder trucks with 2 engine companies to supply water to those ladder trucks, and then we have a rehab support unit and some command staff. So we have a very limited crew, but this crew is going to remain around the clock for the next few days until we can be sure that all the fires extinguished.
No word yet on what sparked the fire, which caused an estimated $40 million in damage. Officials say that most significant was that the county has ever seen that fire was. A College Park man is arrested for flying a drone in restricted airspace near the scene of yesterday's massive building fire. 24-year-old Trayvon Miller is charged with interfering with police and fire response as well as reckless endangerment. Authorities say Miller flew his drone directly into the flight path of a police helicopter that was flying to assist firefighters as they worked to contain the flames. The pilot had to maneuver around the drone to prevent a collision. The Federal Aviation Administration is reminding residents to be mindful of the specific laws of flying a drone within restricted airspace or within 5 miles of an airport. Eulalio Tordil has pled guilty in a shooting rampage that left 3 people dead and injured several others. Last May, he shot his estranged wife as she was sitting outside her 2 daughters' school in Prince George's County. Then, knowing the police were after him, he ditched his car, carjacked 2 SUVs in separate locations, and shot 4 strangers, according to court documents. Before the shooting, Tordil was a career law enforcement officer. He is facing life in prison when he is sentenced in July.